to.
Oh, sorry about that. It jumped off. You're good.
Okay. Will be from Harvard north up to Green Valley. I know that isn't the portion of road that is had the most abuse, but what we anticipate to do is the following year, we hope to do the portion of Harvard all the way to the interchange US 50. So next year we will be, this year, okay, let me start again. This year we'll be doing the clearing and the grubbing and the ditching and the cleaning. Next year we will be doing the paving portion of it, or the roadway surfacing of it. And then from Harvard up to Green Valley, and then the following year, which would be in 2024, we would be doing the portion of Eldorado Hills Boulevard from the interchange up to Harvard. The reason why we're holding off on that portion of it is because there's a much more structural damage to the road. It's going to be a much more costly project. The roadway surfacing is only going to be anywhere between $1.5 million to $2 million, whereas the portion that is going to be from Harvard to the interchange, that is going to be anywhere between a $5 million to $7 million project. Like I said, to fix a lot of the subsurface problems that we have there. So we're hoping, crossing our fingers, that we're going to get some federal money. But if we don't, then we'll just have to dip a little deeper into our own pockets and have to utilize some more either road fund or SB1 money. The other, I know I had another maintenance. Oh, well, those are the two maintenance projects, both in Eldorad Hills Boulevard. Now for the CIP projects, these are the capital projects that are funded through a lot of the developer projects that come into our county. As Supervisor Hidahl mentioned, there is a funding source that comes from every new home that is built by a developer for the impacts that they have on the community. And that's the part that I love to emphasize more than usual, because a lot of our residents believe that the developer oriented funds should be diverted to locations where there is an existing problem, and sometimes some of the locations are existing, but they weren't identified as being locations that were impacted by developers, such as some of the intersections and roadway segments on Green Valley, the impacts that developers have on that roadway stretch of road, as opposed to, let's say, Eldorado Hills Boulevard or White Rock or Silver Valley. Those have a lot more impacts from all the development that's gone in the area. So the projects that will be under construction here within the next 5 years, and these projects take a little bit longer because they have CEQA, NEPA, they have a lot of environmental clearances that we have to go through and jump through hoops. So they're on a little bit longer time frame. Are, for example, the first one that we are going to be very eager to work on is Saratoga and Eldorado Hills Boulevard intersection. We hope to introduce that into the 5-year CIP project list. We hope to get that funded within the next I'd say 2 years. We're crossing our fingers that we can get that one fast tracked. As many of you know, Saratoga, the connection that was on to Saratoga into Folsom has elevated the volumes on Saratoga. And so now we are seeing more delays than we did in the past. And so there was a potential for a development to come in and possibly make those improvements if they made that connection, but it looks like they might not be utilizing that connection anymore. It's still up in the air, so we don't want to wait any longer. We want to make sure that that location is addressed sooner than later. And when it comes to these locations, I want to also emphasize that we based our decisions on improving and or creating capacity of intersections based off of state and federal standards. We use traffic warrants, we use crash data, we use line of sight analysis. All of those calculations come into our decision making. Many a times we get many phone calls from our residents saying, you need to put a stop sign here, or you need to put a signal here, or you need to widen this road. And we're more than welcome and willing to analyze those roads to see if it meets those criteria. But if it doesn't, then what we'll do is we'll typically look at it and determine if we need to analyze it again the following year, or if it meets the warrants, then we'll put it on the list. But that way it leaves any bias, any pressures coming from outside sources, and bases all our decisions on engineering principles, as so it should be when it comes to implementing traffic control devices. So as I said, the first one is Eldorado Hills and Saratoga. Hopefully within the next 2 years, you'll see improvements. And what I mean by improvements is widening Eldorado Hills Boulevard, as well as extending the northbound left turn pocket going onto Saratoga. The next one is the interchange, US 50 at Eldorado Hills Boulevard. That one is also getting close to a deficient level of service, and level of service is the benchmark, is the measurement that we use to determine whether an intersection or a road is not performing adequately. It's still at acceptable level of service, but it's getting close. So we're hoping to widen the roadway right there at the interchange for the northbound direction. As many of you know, if you're coming from Latrobe, it kind of narrows out to 2 lanes there. We're going to widen that portion out so that it's simpler for people to get on to the eastbound US 50 lane and or go underneath the freeway. So that is about an $8 to $10 million project. And that one is somewhere in the 5 to 10 year range, probably closer to like about 7. So and the next one is one that Supervisor Hidahl alluded to, and that is the widening of White Rock. The portion between Latrobe and US 50 has been in the master plan for many years. That is anticipated to happen within the 10 to 15 year benchmark. The reason why it isn't anywhere closer for right now is only because a lot of the development that was anticipated for the area hasn't come in, and the level of services haven't met the thresholds that we see as criteria for improving or widening or adding more capacity. Now, it doesn't mean that if a new development or a new project was to come in, that we wouldn't then accelerate a project. Many of my residents ask, well, you know, do you have to wait for the traffic to be there in order to make the improvements? And that isn't the case. If, for example, Costco was to come in tomorrow, we would probably accelerate that widening sooner than later. But because it hasn't met that threshold yet, and Costco isn't a for sure thing, we don't want to be expending our resources, our funds, in a location that might not be needed now, but is drastically needed somewhere else, such as, let's say, Saratoga and Eldorado Hills Boulevard. So those are the CIP projects that are in the 0 to 5, 5 to 10, and 10 to 15 range ballpark for a CIP. Now, I did hear earlier mention of the Southeast Connector. For many of you who have attended these meetings, that is a connector road that is anticipated to go all the way from I-5 to Eldorado County. The portion that is in Eldorado County is on White Rock. And currently, the JPA who is in charge of that project is still looking for funds to basically construct that project. They are eagerly anticipating opportunities through the infrastructure bill to see if they can start a portion of it. Many of them are saying that potentially the portion that will be in Eldorado Hills would be the first phase. Some are pushing it for it to be further west, closer to I-5, but that really is up to the JPA's discretion. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if a need was to develop sooner for us, such as the link between Latrobe to the county line or from Latrobe to US 50, we would definitely work with the JPA to accelerate our portion of that project. But as I stated earlier, currently those level of services have not met the threshold of unacceptable unacceptable levels. So for right now, we're still holding off and waiting to see what the JPA can do in terms of getting funding for that project. I thought I had heard earlier about some of the connectivity that we are doing with Folsom. One of those is at Empire Ranch. For those of you who don't know, the city of Folsom is planning on constructing an interchange on US 50 at Empire Ranch. That is going to be providing a relief to both Bidwell as well as to Latrobe, Eldorado Hills Boulevard. So we see that as a positive for not just the city of Folsom, but also for Eldorado Hills Boulevard, the community of Eldorado Hills. In particular, it will provide substantial reduction in volume on Saratoga. A lot of people who are currently using Saratoga are getting off on Eldorado Hills Boulevard and utilizing that connection to then proceed north on Empire Ranch to go to Sophia. So with the construction of Empire Ranch, it would be a needed relief valve to distribute a lot of the volume and allow the vehicular pressures that exist with any circulation. That project is anticipated to, well, they're saying that they hopeful and wishful thinking that they want to start in 2023. But considering that they just cleared their environmental, we actually think that the more realistic timeframe will probably be 2024 to start construction for Empire Ranch. And then lastly, the other project that is in the area that some of you are interested about, and John Davey, I'll actually lean on you to see if I need a little bit more clarification. Some people were speaking about expanding of Carson Crossing. I don't know of any expansion in Carson Crossing. I think maybe what they might be asking about is the extending of Carson Crossing, which currently is not in our forecast, and what we're really anticipating is waiting for any development that might be coming in off of the Latrobe Golden Foothill Parkway area that would be completing that extension or connection to Latrobe. But as for the expansion of it, currently we don't have any plans in the very near future in the 5-year, 10-year, or 15-year horizon as it stands. But as I said, if anything was to develop in the very new, any new development that comes up, we will definitely reanalyze and then suggest to update them or bring them current into a earlier date. That's all I have for any of the maintenance and CIP projects that we have, or potential CIP projects that I have. I do have or have heard about interest in other potential connections in the Eldorado Hills area, and so I'm willing to speak of that. Or if you'd like me to answer any questions that the public might have based off of the topics that I've had, I just finished speaking about, I'm willing to answer any questions that they might have.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to invoke some privilege. Sorry, I'm going to jump in line. So yeah, we do have some questions that the community had sent in, and I know Mr. Raslier, he's not letting you go tonight. The question I think on Carson, before John asks it, is that, you know, there's always been a concern at that western terminus where it hits White Rock Road about the road speeds and turning in and out. I know the community has always asked, and I know we've asked for other projects, stop sign, traffic signal, things like that. And in conjunction with what Empire Ranch interchange is going to do, I know that they're talking about roundabouts for their interchange in Folsom. Is there going to be any impact from that Empire Ranch connection, future connection to White Rock, that would impact maybe Carson because the proximity is so close?
Yes, the proximity is going to be close. There will be impacts. I can't say that there wouldn't. And I know that we have modeled it in terms of what the impacts would be. And we have seen that the volumes on White Rock would increase. Now, as to what the mitigation would be for Carson Crossing and White Rock is still up in the air, because there are a lot of, so for example, as I mentioned earlier, Saratoga, there is currently a certain amount of volume that's on Saratoga that has to do with the fact that Empire Ranch isn't there. And so then we have higher volumes that we didn't anticipate would be on Saratoga as quickly, with anticipation that Empire Ranch was going to be in there sooner. Once Empire Ranch does get built, the volumes are going to drop precipitously on Saratoga, so that then it would relieve the pressure. So there are plans to have other connections to Empire Ranch, to Placerville Road, and potentially even Bidwell, which is also, I think, Scott. And so because there are those relief valves that will reduce the pressure, we're going to be working very closely with Sacramento County and with Folsom to make sure that we have decent timing as to when our projects are coming in, when their projects are coming in, so that we don't have to build something too soon to where we're taking away funds at that location. I can tell you that if something was to get built at Empire Ranch, that are one of our more sooner analysis would be the impact. It would be, if it connects all the way to White Rock, what the impacts would be to Carson, and we would probably analyze that right after the connection was made.
I'm going to turn to John. I have one that was a community submitted question. I'll ask that in a little bit. Then I'm going to let our audience jump in. But John, I know you got questions.
Yeah, Rafael, I want to thank you for answering most of the questions that we presented to you in advance, so that you could know what we were going to ask. But the question that I have to ask, insofar as the JPA connector and White Rock, you were saying that at this particular time, the level of service does not warrant the increase in the number of lanes on White Rock going from the county line to Latrobe. What if the JPA wants to increase that? Would that override your criteria that you have not reached that level of service?
So you're asking if the JPA wanted to advance the project on White Rock and bring it in sooner than much later?
Yes, before, I believe you said that you wouldn't think about increasing the number of lanes because it's not warranted at this time because of the level of service. Okay, what if the JPA now says, okay, we've come to the county line and we want to continue the road? Okay, because it would behoove them to continue the road. There'll be a serious roadblock there if they don't. So
Sure.
would you acquiesce in allowing the JPA to continue even though you haven't reached the level of service that you spoke about?
Probably not. It really, we need, if connections are being advanced just because there's funding, that's not quite the rationale between using engineering judgment to construct projects, especially in Eldorado County. We construct projects because it's met our thresholds to build them. If a road, for example, you bring up a very good point, actually. If a freeway was to come on in and then dead ends at a residential road, can you imagine the impact that would have on the residential community? So we would be warn the JPA that if analysis weren't done in order to make sure that the impacts on our communities weren't mitigated, that we would probably not be supportive of a project that would be negatively impacting our community. That's why a lot of these projects have to be timed and collaborated and coordinated, and not just because, hey, great, we got the money, so let's start building some stuff. No, we need to think about it and think about the long-term consequences it's going to be to the surrounding community.
So can I add to that comment? Because I think there's a misconception here. The JPA is not going to come in and build roads in Eldorado County.
No,
They are not. So let's get that straight. Eldorado County Department of Transportation will build the roads in Eldorado County. What the JPA is doing is trying to facilitate getting federal funding to be transferred to Eldorado County to build out those roads consistent with the approved design drawings.
Yeah.
That puts everything in Eldorado County's control. I will tell you, if those funds sit there, I'm sure they're going to be dedicated to that. And as they sit there every year, they're going to lose 8 to 10% of their value. So I don't think that's a wise decision. The other part that wasn't brought up is Folsom Ranch is going to have 11,000 residents. And the way that's building out, that will probably occur within the next 5 years, in my interpretation, okay? How many more cars are going to be coming into Eldorado Hills from Folsom Ranch that aren't being considered yet that's going to increase the demand to widen that road? If you look at the projections that were put into the Southeast Connector project, that's the kind of traffic volumes they're talking about. The only question has always been when, right? And the when is answered by when development happens and the funding is available to build the roads.
yeah, yep, that's it.
But, as I said before, I've been following this road, and so have people in Four Seasons for 16 years, John.
Yeah.
And I know that the JPA has had communication with Eldorado County and made agreements with Eldorado County, and you have been paying money to the JPA. I think it's $5,000 a year.
Like 40,000.
I don't know what you're paying.
Yeah, it's about
But
40,000.
the plan is, as soon as they get the money, they will come into Eldorado Hills.
Listen to
16
Rafael.
years I've been following this.
Listen to
John.
Rafael. It's not something that JPA controls jurisdiction over building roadways in Eldorado County.
So why have you been spending money, giving money to the JPA with the understanding that eventually the connector would come through?
The reason is we get shovel-ready projects to build it. So that saves the county millions of dollars. They're ready to go. They've been approved by CEQA and NEPA. And I know you have an issue with the CEQA analysis and all those things. They were approved by the state. So we can all have issues with those kind of studies and we can ask for more studies. But the bottom line is they've been approved. It's not in question. They've been
But-
approved.
But I can assure you that essentially we are the ones who are in control. As I stated, if they are building a network that is going to impact us negatively, they need to communicate, and they will communicate with us. And if we see the need to widen the road because of a development that is coming in, or some kind of other connection or circulation, and we have the funds, then we will improve it. But it's going to be based on our determination, not somebody else in our county.
Thank you. And the other thing we didn't talk about is if Costco gets approved and it gets built, I can guarantee you there's going to be a lot of residents in Folsom and to the west of us are going to be coming to the Eldorado Hills Costco. Guaranteed. So the
Well, that's
demand on that
supposed to be
roadway
a-
is going to be there
All right.
at some point. I just don't know when.
You seem to think that it'd be a blessing if we have 1 million cars come past, because
This was agreed to like
Four
15 years
Seasons will
ago.
become an island
Okay.
surrounded by traffic. A Heritage will become an island surrounded by traffic. All right, noise, pollution, the ability maybe even to get out of your development. These are not good things, Rafael. These are not, and these are the things that people are afraid of. They're afraid that when the government comes along and says, hey, here's $1 billion, the people in El Dorado County are going to grab that money and use it to extend that road regardless of what the people think. All right? And Rafael, the other thing is there are auxiliary roads. People were hoping that there would be some future plans for Empire Ranch to connect from Latrobe, go behind the new Heritage 3, cross into White Rock, and then connect into the existing Empire Ranch that'll go up to into Folsom. Is there any plans for that? I know John was talking about that before. That would relieve some of the traffic from these communities.
That's what we're referring to, Rafael, as the Beltway, the connection that gets us south of the business park. You've had conversation with Sacramento County DOT. Those discussions are ongoing. I don't know if you want to share any of that or not. Maybe it's premature.
I can if you give me the green light.
It's fine with me because I think we need to talk about it so people recognize this is in the plans. It doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? Because the big thing on all of this is funding. And if you can't come up with the funding, it's not going to happen. So
John, just to answer your question regarding the impacts due to traffic, that's why we have a general plan. We try to determine where are the good places to have homes, where are the good places to have retail, commercial, entertainment, and then what we do is we accordingly plan out what the roadway segments are going to look like. And in the beginning, the roadway segments are very thin and very sparse, and so people anticipate that that's the way it's probably going to be for a long time. But most of these general plans are looking out, 30, 40, even 50 years out into the future. And based off of what the zoning has been already predetermined, dictates what the volume is going to be in the future. So then my job is not to encourage traffic to come. My job is to manage it with the anticipated zoning that we have. And I want to hopefully do that with a very, very low level of service, or that is good level of service that is not going to be impactful to my community. Because that's the furthest, because that means people screaming at me saying that we have too much traffic, and I don't want that. But in terms of the topic that Supervisor Hidahl is talking about, John Davies, is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, I think I've got that capable. Where is?
You should.
Yeah, I think I should, but
let me emphasize, this is all conceptual. There's no agreements now, but it has to start with somebody laying out a routing that we can talk to, right?
Exactly.
So that's what Rafael has done for us.
so
There you go.
There we go. So I'm just gonna quickly go through these. And like Supervisor Hidahl said, these are very, very conceptual. In order to relieve some of the potential, because we don't know yet, potential level, deficient level of services in Latrobe or White Rock, if development comes in and it's much greater than what we anticipated in terms of volumes. These are potential roadways that we are thinking about providing connections. This is alternative one, where we would go across on Golden Foothill, use Carson Crossing, and then instead of the current connection, we would veer off to the west and then connect to Empire Ranch that way. The second alternative is instead, we would keep that current connection and the current alignment off of Carson Crossing, but instead provide a much southerly connection off of Latrobe, so that it would not impact any of the business park and bring them around into Sacramento County and onto Old Placerville Road, and basically away from any of the currently populated areas. The connection in Sacramento County would just be this blue line that you see here. The rest of it would be Sacramento County. Now, the negative with this is it wouldn't provide any of the access off of Empire Ranch. The third alternative would be to have that southerly connection connecting to Empire Ranch, but it would be off of a completely new alignment in Sacramento County that would then connect to South Latrobe. The benefit is that it would provide the direct connection to Empire Ranch. It would relieve all the traffic away from Latrobe and White Rock, but this is the most costly because this alignment has not been studied, not been designed at all. And just preliminarily, we believe that it would be a huge environmental impact to the area. So the one alternative that we believe has the most potential would be, and cost-effective wise, is to have the connection off of the South Latrobe or the southerly portion of Latrobe over to Payne Road to provide vehicular access to White Rock from that location into Old Placerville Road to Scott and Bidwell, as well as the minor connection that would provide access to Empire Ranch. Once again, eliminating and or removing a lot of the pressures and the volumes over here in the Latrobe, White Rock region. Once again, as Supervisor Hidahl said, these are very preliminary. We've only started barely analyzing it. Currently, it's not in our general plan. So if we were to move forward with this, we would have to work very closely with planning to see if it's even justifiable as an alternative environmentally, and if it poses a benefit to the community.
The other part I'll mention, as I mentioned, it was a beltway. So the roadway that Rafael has shown here would connect to White Rock, would connect to Latrobe Road. Ideally, you go across Latrobe Road and down through Marble Valley and connect back to Highway 50. Parker Development Company is agreeable in concept with that approach. So you truly would have a beltway. If you're coming out of Placerville, you could connect on that beltway, get down to Latrobe Road and go to Amador County and never go down downtown Eldorado Hills, White Rock Road, and Latrobe, right? Stay off that because it truly creates a beltway. And this is something that DOT considered about 20 years ago. And they did a bunch of studies. And at that point, the alignment was going to be on the Eldorado County side. And then for whatever reason, all that disappeared and that all became housing called Four Seasons and other subdivisions. Don't know how that happened, but that's what it became. So we lost the opportunity to do it within Eldorado County, which is why we started talking with Sacramento County. And there is property owned that's going to be developed in the Sacramento County side, I can guarantee you. I just don't know when. So that would help pay for these roads.
I would just like to add, Rafael and John, that the people in Heritage, the people in Four Seasons, and the people in Blackstone are very, very interested in this plan, whichever iteration you want, because it would take traffic off of White Rock, it would take traffic off of Carson Crossing, and save those communities from being surrounded by traffic. So they are very, very serious about that plan, and we hope that you will do more consideration and planning on that.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. And I was a little hesitant to share that with all of you, but I'm glad to hear that it would be a welcoming to the community, because I only want to do whatever my community wants me to do as it pertains to the state standards, and if it's justifiable. So if it means taking pressure, taking vehicles, taking traffic congestion off of Latrobe and off of White Rock and dumping it into Sacramento County, I think it's a good thing. But once again, like I said, I do with what my community tells me to do. So I'm glad to hear that you think it's a viable alternative.
Thank you.
So one of the other things we should mention very quickly is Eldorado Union High School has a 200-acre site. And if they ever build that high school site and close Oak Ridge, can you imagine what traffic that's going to cause down there? This alignment, if it's done right, will come out adjacent to where that property is.
How did Huckleberry become lost in Eldorado County?
But we could,
But again, conceptual. Enough said.
Kathy, your microphone's on, so just let you know.
Ooh, all right.
So let's have an opportunity. We have two people online that have questions. I want to get to them real quick, but then I want to open up to the room. Bill, you have been waiting a long time. Let me get you going here. And go ahead, if you could unmute, you have a chance to ask some questions. Well, maybe Bill's not ready. There you go.
I'm struggling with Zoom. So can you hear me now?
We're all struggling with Zoom, but you're good.
Okay, great. My question, so I'm a Heritage resident, and I don't think you answered really the question about the Carson Crossing and White Rock Road intersection. So the speed on White Rock and pulling out from Carson Creek is problematic. So is there a tactical mitigation that can be done there? Is there a stop sign? Is there a speed limit thing that can be done there to make that less of a dangerous intersection?
I apologize. So what we do, for not answering the question, that is clearly, what we do is we have particular intersections that we analyze on a more regular basis. That is one that we do on a yearly basis. Typically, we only analyze intersections about once every 2 years. But that one, Saratoga and Finders, is my new favorite intersection as well.
I know that's why you answered the question with that intersection.
So those are the intersections now that we analyze on a yearly basis, because we get so many residents asking about it. Like I said earlier, if it meets the thresholds, and that's really, I know it's hard for a lot of residents, because for them, they have to live with it every day. But we have to base our decisions off of some kind of parameter that is equal and fair for everybody in the community who's asking for either all-way stops or intersection control with a signal. And so I can tell you, we are analyzing it on a yearly basis. If the speeds, that doesn't play too much into account, except for if it goes above a certain threshold, above the 85th percentile, which is a speed barometer that we use with CHP. It hasn't met that yet, but I can tell you that we work very closely with CHP in order to enforce it, because we feel that it's an enforcement issue, with people thinking that they've got these wide roads and that they can go as fast as they'd like. And I promise you, as well as I've promised the other residents who have asked me about that intersection and the ones at Saratoga and Finders, that we will continue to analyze that on a yearly basis. And if we do find that it does get even close to the threshold where it would meet the acceptance, the warrant, then we have gotten no problem with putting it into the CIP and then working with our engineers and our fiscal team to build it.
So I understand the speed threshold thing, but it doesn't sound like you're taking into account the safety aspect of that. If you are trying to make a left-hand turn from Carson Crossing onto White Rock, it's a sketchy thing from time to time. I've had a number of close calls of people coming eastbound on White Rock because going very fast. And I haven't lived here all that long, but I've had very near misses. So how do you take that into account? Does there need to be accidents there?
So what we do is we do an analysis for line of sight. So if there is insufficient line of sight, based off of
there is insufficient line of sight. I'm telling you that for sure.
Well, but and that's the difficulty, unfortunately, I have, because I get that. I come up to certain intersections and thought to myself, wow, this is a problem. But from what my engineer told me, it doesn't meet the state and the federal standards for that line of sight. So unfortunately, I know from a personal perspective, it might feel that way. It just doesn't meet it from a standards criteria. So unfortunately, if the engineering geometry is good, if there are no accidents that say, hey, there's either something that is unforeseeable or can't be calculated, a high rate of accidents, then that could be a justification. But we don't have that at that location either. So if none of those boxes are checked, then we work very closely with CHP as well as my traffic department to maybe adjust the striping, maybe adjust some signing, maybe put some warning markers. And we have done that at other locations. I will get back to you on that intersection, maybe through John Davies, because I don't know what the last analysis was, and I can get you those numbers so that we can all be on the same page.
So Bill, if you want to go ahead, my email address is at the top of the agenda, or you can email the APAC email address. I'll get your contact information, and anything that Rafael has, we could pass along to you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And if it's just me, that's fine, but I don't think
Well, Rafael, if I could jump in on that one too, because
Yeah.
it kind of goes to what we had been discussing a lot with the Saratoga and Finders and in the line of sight issue. And I think a lot of community members are curious. I appreciate the comment that the engineers may have approved it, having just litigated a case with Rancho Cordova and line of sight and CHP. I think there needs to be a little bit better analysis and detail as to what DOT is looking at when evaluating for purposes of Eldorado County, what they consider to be a line of sight obstruction.
Well, the state standard. So whatever the federal and state manuals say that the line of sight has to be.
Well, because that wasn't what was communicated during the meeting that we had previously. It was that the individual engineer walked it, did a measuring, and basically was able to subjectively gauge at what point in time they were doing the measurements. I was never made aware of an actual state standard. And having litigated the law, I can tell you that different counties have different applications in different cities as well. When you're looking to the CHP and what is the result or the cause of an accident.
Actually, Brooke, you are right. Some agencies have taken upon themselves to create their own standards for either line of sight. But the one that we use, which is the Caltrans one, because it covers us the easiest, because that way we could just blame the state. And I forgot what the number is in terms of the line of sight, but it basically references as soon as you could see the vehicle at a certain point, and then the number of feet that you should have for stopping sight distance as soon as you see that vehicle. And it is done by engineers or techs out in the field to take that measurement. And if my guys didn't get that to you, I could definitely
Right.
get that over to you. I apologize.
So I'll
Okay.
take it. No. And I would really appreciate that. And I'll take it a step further just to give you an example what the community members are raising. So looking at the distance between what community members have evaluated to be the point where you could start seeing a vehicle, using the example of the new stop or I think it's a 3-way stop or a 2-way stop on Saratoga or Iron Point a little bit before
Oh,
on the
yeah,
Folsom side before.
Yeah.
So the line of sight evaluation there, the measurements there are equivalent or actually greater than what the community members are looking and measuring as to finders. And the line of sight's there to justify the stop sign. So that's where the confusion lays, is who's setting the measurements at what points, and why is there such a differential when that example is so close in proximity? And you had so many community members raising that issue, and then to see a stop sign go up and not necessarily meet the same criteria less than 500 yards away, it's a little bit confusing for the public.
And I can see where the confusion lies and how it doesn't seem very fair. How come they got it and we don't? And I can tell you that I spoke to the traffic engineer in the city of Folsom, and he showed me their accident rate, which is twice the state standards for an intersection of that size and that volume. And whereas we're below what the state standard recommends for traffic accidents, as well as their volumes were higher, their speeds were about the same as ours, but they did have a horizontal line of sight, which is different from ours, which is a vertical line of sight. So because the volumes were higher, the accidents were higher, and their line of sight was more deficient from a different perspective. That's the reason why they justified that location. But, and like I said earlier to Bill, you guys are my favorite intersection now because my engineers now gripe at me every time they go out there every year as opposed to every 2 years because they have to analyze it. But to me, it's worth it because if something does change, I'd rather be proactive and catch it before an accident than after an accident. So if the volumes change, if the speeds change, if CHP tells me something's different, and we all feel that it's justifiable, then by all means, I'd rather do it ahead of time. I have to make sure that I'm fair because I've got 20 other intersections that also have the same criteria that I haven't given them either a stop sign or implementation. So I can completely understand how it might seem different, but we try to treat all our residents and all our intersections the same way. And I can definitely get you that information as well, Brooke, as to what my guys took in terms of the analysis out there.
Well, yeah, I think if you could share the Folsom or the Sacramento analysis that was done for the other one, I think that would be helpful too.
I will ask
if
them.
possible. If they'd be willing.
It's their data, so I don't want to share that data without them giving me the green light. But yes, I will ask.
Thank you.
I would like to understand what the criteria is and
Sure.
see how that it pertains to that intersection.
Not a problem.
Take a drive, take a look there.
I know, yeah, yeah, I get it, for sure.
And just not to be pejorative, but we're a bunch of old folks living in that neighborhood, so
Sure. Got it.
reaction times are different. So maybe the state standard is a little bit off, and an adjustment could be made for a stop sign or some other mitigation for that intersection.
Got it.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'll add just my final conclusion. My case was a wrongful death case, and I think so many of us just don't want
Yeah.
to see that happen.
Yeah.
You know, every precaution, while I appreciate the criteria, I think when you have this much notice of a potential problem, that should possibly be a criteria too.
Sure.
Okay, so we
Excellent.
have another question online, and we got to get to the room, and we got to get Rafael out of here. So, Robert Williams, if you have a question you're ready to ask, please do.
More comments than a question. Bill, you just hit upon a very important point that really plays into both the Four Seasons and the heritage issues. You're talking about a protected population here, and indeed you have to make special consideration to a senior community that will have different response times and the like. Also, the impacts with regard to wrongful death and injury will be magnified something more significantly. You're talking about several thousand people right now that are going to be impacted by not only the raw traffic accident potential, but the noise issues. And in the case of White Rock specifically, if we're looking at the inevitability of White Rock becoming 4-lane, and that's what I think I'm hearing, then there has to be some kind of mitigation in terms of noise that has to be put as part of your building plan. Because you're talking about an early to bed, sensitive, protected population. And that also applies to the issues with regard to a Carson Crossing. And I appreciate, by the way, your response to me on a Public Records Act request. You did a magnificent job, as did Gina Hamilton, in getting that information, including the connector issue that you just talked about. But I also do appreciate the fact that you have agreed to meet with the South Eldorado Hills Consortium of Heritage, Carson Crossing, and Blackstone early next week, or early next month. Also with Supervisor Turnboo. Supervisor Hidahl, you're more than welcome to join us in that session also. But we will be wanting to drill down on these issues very, very definitely, because the whole issue of mitigating for the purpose of a protected population is very important. Which brings to my plea to you also, is that we are now looking at having a very horrifically impacting park open up in the middle of our community. To the best of my knowledge, based upon all the information you provided to me under the PRA, there has been no traffic studies done as to the impact on Carson Crossing and Palmdale roads. Palmdale is obviously just a feeder into a community. It's right now a private road. The exits feed into that. I understand tomorrow you are meeting with a member of our committee at 9 o'clock by telephone to go over the line of sight issues. Right now, there are blind spots connected to those exits. They're horrific. And I spent too many years as a volunteer first responder, and I've responded to too many accidents that regrettably something that could have been prevented. I don't want to see that in my community. So I plead to you, Rafael, and I think you're a good man and you're going to look at this very seriously, but take a look at this before it becomes a traffic issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, in the room, your microphone's on. You ready? Let's go.
I think so. Yeah. Hi, Mr. Martinez. Hi, I'm Bill Knox. I live in the Four Seasons, and like Mr. Rassier here, I've lived there for 16 years. I very much appreciate your comments tonight. I found them to be quite illuminating and thought-provoking, and thank you for that. I just have two questions. One has to do with, this is something that I'm sure Brick Washington is very Washburn, excuse me, is very familiar with, and that has to do with Saratoga and Finders Way. Now, I take Saratoga a great deal to get over to the bicycle trails in Folsom, and so I'm very familiar with that. I'm also familiar with the fact that at Finders Way and Saratoga, there is literally a blind spot. If you're coming over the hill on Saratoga and you encounter Finders Way, or if you are exiting Finders Way and you're either turning right or turning left, it's very I should say easy to get into an accident. I've taken a look at that, and it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Martinez, is there possibly a stoplight that's going to be built at that intersection? So if you could comment on that. My second question has to do with Eldorado Hills Boulevard, the proposed expansion of EDH Boulevard from Harvard Way to, let's say, Francisco, or maybe even to Green Valley Road. Will that expansion also include a widening of Eldorado Hills Boulevard in that area? I think at least to Francisco, I think, in my opinion, that is something that should be looked at. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate your comment. So as I stated earlier, I want to try and be fair to all my residents. I do have a preference to the Eldorado Hills one, since it is my closest community to where I live and where I do a lot of my shopping. And I travel a lot, and I do travel on Saratoga quite a bit, especially on the weekends with my kids in sports. And so in order for me to be the most fair and have no biases from myself, from my staff, any political biases or pressures in implementing any of our traffic control, we try and stick strictly 100% to the standards set to us by the state of California. And currently, that standard states that our stopping sight distance for finders in Saratoga does meet the thresholds. I've got other locations that either have the same stopping sight distance, but have higher volumes or have higher speeds. And so in order to be fair to them, we strictly stick to the standards. Now, if there is a threshold that we're getting close to, and we see foreseeable issues or developments or variables that might perpetuate the problem, we can suggest to bring it into the CIP early, but it would have to be overwhelming. So if, let's say, for example, we analyze Saratoga and Finders next year, and it's close, and we know there's more traffic coming, and Empire Ranch isn't going to get built yet, well, then we might enter it into the CIP, or Carson Crossing and White Rock. If it's close and we see foreseeable increases, then we might enter it into the CIP, but only when we know that it's within, a percentage of the threshold, and that there are foreseeable increases or degradation to the vehicular volume. So that's the answer to your first question. The answer to your I'm sorry, what was your second question again?
That's okay, Rafael. I'm talking about you had referenced possibly in the very near future expanding Eldorado Hills
that's
Boulevard.
right.
Yeah, between Harvard and, let's say, Francisco or beyond. Would that also include widening of the road between that in that area?
Currently, the maintenance project that we have for that stretch of road is only maintenance oriented. So SB1, it's the gas tax money, can only be utilized for maintenance purposes. So the improvement that we're going to do there is to resurface it. It's not extending it, it's not expanding it, and it's not widening it. All we are doing is going to resurface it so that we can prolong the life of that roadway. We're essentially going to make it black and make it last for a really long time. Currently, the volumes don't exceed that threshold either. They're close. They're close for that stretch of road, but they don't exceed the level of service that it would warrant or justify that. Now, if it did, and we analyze those roads as well very often, then we would be able to use TIF fee, and that's a different funding source to make those types of improvements. And if it did, we would be letting Supervisor Hidahl know ASAP that we need to expand it or not. So stay tuned. If it does get expanded in the very near future, we will be letting either APAC or Supervisor Hidahl know that it made the list.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
And to follow up on Bill's, Rafael made a presentation with support of his staff in August at APAC. We did a virtual meeting specifically about Saratoga binders. It's rather informative. So if you have time, if you didn't catch it, we're not selling tickets, but it's posted on our website. It's on our YouTube channel. We have one more question here in the room, and we got to get Rafael going. So
real quick, Rafael, earlier it was discussed that if Costco gets to build out, they'll build out quickly. The presentation last month indicated that. At that point, White Rock Road will be a bottleneck for the houses in Folsom, because they will trying to get across the freeway on Scott Road / Bidwell to get to the Costco. You know what that intersection's like on the Sacramento County side. So they'll be coming up. So your issue with Carson Crossing coming out onto White Rock, reaction time, line of sight, probably is impacted by the construction that's going on there right now. So if you did your analysis a year ago and the line of sight was good, met the standard, my question would be, would it make sense to go back and look at line of sight now with all the construction going on the Sacramento County side for the Folsom developments? That road has changed in the last year on their side. So line of sight, I don't know what the line of sight looked like then versus now, but I would suggest maybe that's a possibility that it has changed. And then I would say with Costco going in, as Mr. Hidahl said, it is immediately going to impact White Rock Road. And that, so your 10 to 15 year projection to widen that to 4 lanes seems like that should be put into the very next bucket, or we're going to have this big impact. And then the Beltway discussions and everything else is way down the road. So for a 10 to 15 year schedule for White Rock Road going to 4 lanes all the way up to Silver Valley interchange with Costco going in, just those two don't match up, in my opinion. And I would throw that back at you and say, maybe DOT needs to look at that, because Costco will go quickly.
That is a real possibility. And so the fact that we are analyzing those 2 intersections are the handful of intersections that we are looking at on a yearly basis is for that reason, is because of the fact that there is a possibility for there to be change very quickly, and we wouldn't want to have to wait a 2-year period to reanalyze it and find out, oh, wow, this has been above the threshold for over a year. And if there are other variables that do then come into play, such as, let's say, a new parcel that gets developed sooner than later, such as a Costco, I can tell you that we would be looking at that intersection very quickly to make sure that it is still within or without the variables of meeting the warrant. And if it is, then we definitely want to be proactive and not have to wait for there to be an accident. So I completely agree with you. Yes, if Costco was to come in, or if the volumes increase, and that's why, you know, when I had this conversation with Brooke back several months ago, my promise to the community was that we were gonna add this to the list of locations that we're gonna look at it on a yearly basis, because sure enough, she was right, and so was Commissioner Vena and Commissioner and Supervisor Hidahl. They said, hey, the volumes are gonna increase there very quickly, and so you can't just be looking at this every 2 years. And so what we did is, yeah, I made them a promise that I'll take a look at it every year. And actually, we took a look at Saratoga and Finders sooner than that, just because they were going up so fast. So that's my promise to the community, is that we will continue analyzing it. And if it does get close, we will notify all of you or the supervisor or the commissioners, so that we can get the message out that, hey, guess what? It looks like something might be changing here. We might be able to do something for you guys, or maybe we might work with you guys to try and expedite something. I'm actually doing that in the Bass Lake Hills area, where I'm working with the community to maybe expedite a project sooner than later. So by all means, I want to be proactive. I don't want there to be accidents. I want to try and get something before something happens. At the same token, I got to try and be fair to all my residents who are also asking for the same type of mitigation. So that's why every time John Davies asks me to come here, I'm willing to do it, because it gives me an opportunity to let them know where I'm at, where their intersections are at. And maybe for the next time, John, you invite me, I can definitely, if you hit me up ahead of time, I can get those numbers beforehand, and maybe I can get them right when they ask it. But Brooke and Bill, I will definitely get those numbers and those calculations out to John Davy, and then he could disseminate those out to you.
Thank you for that.
Very good.
Thank you.
So I have one final question, because you're trapped right now. Sorry. So we did have one question from the community come in advance of our meeting from Stephanie Haley, and it was primarily about the EV access road inside Stonebriar from Folsom Heights that would come into Stonebriar at Prima. She was wondering if DOT had any insight. Has there been any changes, any development? I talked to Ron Phillips here at Eldorad Hills Fire Department last week and this week, and he said that the last conversation that EDH Fire had with the city of Folsom and with Folsom Fire was that they still have not decided on an alignment for the EVA road. They don't know the terms or the conditions that they'll put in terms of the gate. The community is concerned that it's going to become a through road for traffic. There was some discussion, I guess, in Folsom about it potentially being a pedestrian road as well, with the bike path and with a pedestrian path. And the community there is very concerned, and Stephanie has been on top of this since 2017, at least that I remember. So I know that Ron Phillips here at EDH Fire, he said there's been no changes or no updates with any new progress on that, and wasn't aware if the department had any information about that, because it will be an access road that touches a road inside Eldorado County.
I do know of the issue. I do know of the location. And I remember about 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, I had communications with the city of Folsom regarding that. And I remember it was a little contentious. And so yeah. I haven't heard anything since. So what I could do for you, John, is I could look into that again and find out what the latest is, because currently right now, I don't have any information for you. I couldn't tell you. Okay.
Well, you know what? You spent a lot of time here tonight. You can take the rest of the night off.
All right.
We appreciate your time. And you mentioned when we ask, you do respond. And even in the communities, when it's not APAC, we've had transportation department staff, along with Highway Patrol, Sheriff, Fire, show up for a community traffic discussion in the community, standing in the road. And so the department is very eager to engage. We appreciate your time and your efforts here tonight. And we really do appreciate it. We look forward to talking to you again soon.
My pleasure. Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night, Rafael.
Bye.
Okay, so with that, let me start this up. So Chris has been very patient here tonight. Chris, let's see if I can get this going here on this machine for you. You got that? Okay, and you're okay seeing it from there?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me, okay, sorry. It's hard to drive and talk at the same time. Okay, so Chris is here tonight to talk about a project that's conceptual right now, and he's looking for feedback here in the community. And it's a very interesting, compelling project, and Chris has been working on this for a long time. He's still got some work to do, but Chris, if you want, you got the controller. Go ahead and introduce yourself, I'm sorry, and then I cannot because the fire department controls it. Yes, no, it's in the machine back there, and I could plug something in, but I'd rather
You'll be able to
not.
watch the recorded one though.
Yeah, the recorded one doesn't have it on
Doesn't
it.
have it, yeah.
Just the stills, okay.
Yeah.
I can't see the back of the board, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you, John. I appreciate that lead in, and hello APAC, and hello to the supervisors, and hello to the listeners at home. My name's Chris Gallardo. I've been a resident of the area for 25 years. I've raised my children here. I own my home here, and I want to improve the quality of life here for generations to come. I'm here tonight to present the many benefits the activity of surfing can offer our community and provide an overview of our ambition to build a surf park in the region. Surfing has been called the #1 aspirational sport in the world, and as you'll see in our presentation, surfing transcends age, race, ability, and even sport to unite people and give them purpose. We can see the growth in our community coming: new homes, hotels, gas stations, and even a Costco. Our company's mission is to ensure that outdoor recreation and entertainment, social engagement, and improved quality of life are also included in this growth. Our project meets this need by combining a highly desired activity with a proven economic component that creates jobs and brings tourism to the area. As we develop our project, we actively seek APAC's and the public's input. As a local resident, I understand the values of this community and the needs to start this discussion early. To APAC and the public, thanks for the opportunity.
Going or not going?
I don't think your remote's working. Oh, maybe it powered off. Let me try powering it on. Yeah, there we go. Hang on.
It doesn't, just point at me and I'll move it.
Go ahead and move it forward, John.
There you go. Is that it? Was that a good spot for you?
Okay, so just a little bit about me real quick. I know we've been here a long tonight, guys, so I'll try to be quick and get through this for you. Thanks for everyone's patience. But I was raised in Pismo Beach, California. I moved to this area in rescue in 1997 to pursue a career as a professional snowboarder and started a family. By the end of my career, I had over 50 photos in the magazines. I've worked as a stockbroker for 7 years. I was also in the tech industry for Apple for 12 years. In 2020, during the pandemic, I founded Inland Surf Company. I believe that surfing makes the world a better place and can provide many benefits to our community. Go ahead, John. So right now we can, we surf, oh, actually I have control now.
Okay, good deal.
Yeah, so today we can surf in the ocean. We can surf in the lakes. This is actually Lake Tahoe in March. And we can surf in rivers. This is the Deschutes River in Oregon. And we can also surf in pools. This is Switzerland. I just got back from a trip to Switzerland where we got to surf some of these things. And I won't read all this to you, but just a real quick kind of synopsis of the company. It was really created to help shape a new era in surfing and have a positive effect on inland communities. Surfing in itself is quite old, dating back to the 12th century, and now more than ever, people want to surf. And I don't know if you've seen them, but even dogs want to surf. There's those surfing dogs that I've seen out there. The sport enjoys a growth rate of about 6 to 8% annually, and during COVID times, we've seen that jump to 12%. So some of our core values to our company are the community. If it's not, it's got to be good for the community. So that's right at the top there. It's got to be authentic. It's got to be real surfing, accessible. It's got to be easy access and inclusive. And it's got to be sustainable. protecting the environment is paramount to us. A little bit about surfonomics. Surfing industry creates about 10 to $15 billion just off equipment sales alone. If you factor in the travel and the surf tourism that the industry enjoys, it's closer to about 50 billion. And we've actually been notified that that number's a little bit shy. It's actually greater than that, but quite a lot of money in that industry. About 35 million people globally surf, and it's really good for your health. It burns quite a bit of calories doing it. So we've got this amazing activity and a massive industry that only continues to grow. The problem is for inland communities, we've kind of been left out of it. You know, we lack access to the waves, or we haven't had access to the waves until now. So the solution is that we can bring the wave to the people. And these are a little snapshot of some of the surf parks that are coming across the globe. Right now, there's about 100 in works, with about 40 that are actually, broken ground and are being developed. There's about 100 that are actually planned, but it's no secret, they're definitely coming.
How many are in existence now, actually up and running?
There's probably about a handful, maybe 10. There's a couple different types of surf parks too. So if you factor in the smaller scale ones, it's probably upwards of 20, but the large scale ones that are more similar to what we want to build, less than 10. So this is a beautiful example of a large scale surf park. This one's in the UK, and this, produces traveling waves like you'd find in the ocean. Those can be adjusted for beginners all the way to experts and professionals. With the inclusion of surfing in the Olympics, you can see them as training facilities now too for Olympic athletes. And really just conceptually, I'm just trying to show you guys some of the projects that are coming around the world. And these aren't necessarily, an exact replica of what we want to build here in El Dorado Hills, but they should kind of give you an idea of what some of these developers are doing and what's going on in this space. This project shows a surf pool next to a hotel and a mixed use recreation, retail, and commercial space. This one shows what a surf park can look like in a really big urban setting. I like the way they added a concert venue in the right-hand corner and the urban beach. This is one that was just unanimously approved in Palm Desert. It was just unanimously approved last week by their council. But it's a big project, and you can see that some of the developers are basically building these surf parks much like they would build a master plan community around a golf course. Now they're building them around a surf park because the needs of people are changing. They want this type of activity, and it's being delivered. This one kind of shows you a look of a project that's, well, you can't see it now in this picture, but below that wave pool is an athletic field or a track and field course. So this developer has kind of envisioned a sporting complex type development. And then this is another surf park planned that has a real strong urban beach feel, where they've really tried to create an urban beach. You can see the volleyball courts and all of the sand and that beach feel. Kind of a cool concept. And most of these surf parks in the US anyway are coming, in the, in kind of the sunshine and warm belt across the US. But some of them are even being built as far north as British Columbia. So they really can be built anywhere. Just depends if people want to put wetsuits on or not. Another project in Brazil, really nice looking facility that's being designed there. So this is the one that I just went to in Switzerland. And, this can be built, this whole facility resides on about 3 acres. The portion of water is about 2 acres. That is one of the smaller scale ones, so they can go up to a larger area, but this just kind of shows you the small scale view as well. And this one's really cool. in the base of the Alps in Switzerland. So pretty cool. Just a couple more views of the space around it. You know, there's usually a couple building hubs that are associated with the surf park. Those we'll get into in a minute. Kind of another little aerial view of it. And in terms of our area, you know, I've been a resident, like I said, for 25 years, and I love El Dorado County. I love El Dorado Hills, and I love where I live. We have a lot of people around us, which makes it nice for this type of attraction because, you know, we have access to those people. So within about 110-mile range, we've got 11.5 million people, which is nice. Our project seeks to leverage this amazing location, climate, and access to these nearby populations to deliver a world-class attraction like some of the ones you've just seen. It is a tall task, but with our team and our community, we believe that anything is possible. This map shows activity in our region, and what it ultimately shows is those white or hot areas show high levels of activity. So you've got a lot of people in the community that like jogging, like running, like biking, like kayaking and boating and skiing and snowboarding and boating, you know, those types of things. So we feel that it makes a good place for surfing because it's just another outdoor activity that people will connect with in this area that they already do a lot of outdoor activities in. So about a little over a year ago, I started working with the CSD. Kevin and Tawny and that group. We started building out a vision for them to offer a surf park. And it was built around a smaller type of wave. So what I'm about to show you, you know, is a little different. The wave component that we want to do is a little different than what's shown in these examples. But in terms of some of the surrounding amenities for our community, they will give you an idea of kind of what we're visioning, the elements that we're visioning. See it, believe it, and do it. You know, a park with purpose. That's really what we're trying to create with a economic component. And this is what a standing wave is. That smaller surf park mimics what's found in the river. So unlike those other ones that I just showed you, this one's a little bit smaller, but again, not quite what we're looking to do now. The benefits to the community are quite impressive, but desired recreation, improved health and wellness, social engagement, and economic growth are just a few of the ways a surf park can benefit the community. The surf component itself provides an amazing activity in its own right, but really it's the special programming and services that the surf park will be able to offer that will really touch and impact people's lives in the community. So here's some of our, here's some of the renderings that our team made when we were building this project to present to the CSD. But you can see we've got a real open space. We want to preserve that open space and have a passive type environment where there's not, kind of a barrier to entry, all of it. The surf component will have a kind of a wristband area and a process for that. But the rest of the park, we really want to be sort of passively accessed. And we use the term multi-generational a lot, and I love seeing it in the master plan as well. This image is a great example of surfing's multi-generational appeal. The guy on the surfboard is about 62 years old, and he's got his grandkids there watching, and his children as well. So really cool that you can be doing such a family-oriented event with the whole family. I can't think of too many other activities where all ages are being involved. Golf would maybe be another one, where you could have young children out there and then the older population as well, all enjoying the same activity. But surfing takes it to another level, in my opinion. And this guy rips. He's grandpa that knows how to make a nice turn. I like it. Accessibility is real important in our vision. We want, the park to be accessible. And we can be the first one in our region to deliver that. We believe that a surf park should fit within, complement, and preserve the open space in our community, and include the ability to access the park on foot, bicycle, or those with special needs. When we talk about accessible and accessibility, we also like to mention inclusivity and connectivity. Connectivity meaning the trail, paths to it, meaning bike paths and bike trails and pedestrian paths to it. Real important to be able to make it accessible. Both accessible to, the tourists that will be coming to it, and also the local community that will walk and ride their bikes to it. A surf school component is also something that we'll include. That'll offer impactful programming like surf therapy to our local schools, organizations, and those with special needs. There's a health and wellness component that's obviously a big piece of it. Surfing is really good for you, and we want to promote that in our community. There's also ways that we can work with wounded warriors and other programs like Operation Surf. Surfing has been shown to be a successful treatment for PTSD, anxiety, and depression. So why not, allow that sort of therapy to happen in our surf park? We want to do that for sure. We also want to inspire the future generations, the kids in our community that don't really have a lot of things to do here, quite honestly. We want to give them things to do and give them positive influences, if you will. So that's a big piece of our vision as well. Kids, surf classes, after school programs, summer day camps. These are all ways that we can engage and build confidence in our youth and inspire them. Thoughtfully designed surf park should also include an event or community room that can serve multiple functions, from a classroom or social room to rentable space for birthday parties and private events.
Go on.
I don't think Nathan's gonna be on till 10:40.
Hold on. Hey, Jeff, I think your microphone's on.
Well, that's what
No, it's not. So.
Arts and culture are another thing that our surf park would celebrate. We'd want to celebrate local artists, offer workshops, and incorporates art and culture into the facility as well. And then the surf park will offer our community many economic benefits, from creating jobs, increased sales for local businesses, and surf tourism. This is kind of what an outdoor food and beverage experience could look like. A retail shop is another way that will create jobs and have a positive effect on the economy. A retail component becomes sort of an experiential retail experience too, when you're buying and you're shopping for some products that you'll actually be able to go right out to the field, if you will, or the surf pool and use. So it creates a really cool experience. And then lastly, protecting the environment through sustainability is really a top priority of our team. We want this thing to be here for many years, and we want it to be sustainable, both from an operating standpoint, but also from an environment standpoint. So we're excited to look at renewable energy and some of those things. Just as a whole, the surf park most surf parks will use less than just 1 or 2 holes on an average size golf course, just in comparison to their water usages. And then last summer, we had the opportunity to go to the Summerfest at Community Park there, and we engaged the community and did some public outreach, and it was really amazing. We received so much support and interest in our mission. The message was clear. Our community wants to surf, and they want to do it now. We did some signature collecting and put some little results here. Due to the nature of that event, it was a family type event with a lot of youth and their parents essentially. But we were pleased to see the results. We had a lot of youth that really were interested in learning how to surf and having this in their community. We also saw a large correlation with the 30 to 45 group, where those parents of those children also want to surf. They want to go and do these things with their children and have an activity that they can do in their community without driving to Tahoe, without driving to Sacramento or the Bay Area, something that they can do locally and keep those dollars here and just build memories for a lifetime. So that was really cool to see that age range. And then I was also really impressed with that older age range too. You know, you can surf well into your 70s, guys, just to let you know. So it's very low impact. It's very low impact, and and I think that it was encouraging to see that older range gravitate towards the idea too. And in terms of, you know, places, you know, this is Town Center West. After a couple of years of evolving and validating our vision, we've gotten to the point where we've really started to identify suitable sites to build a surf park. And we're not saying that that this is our top site, but you know, this kind of gives you an idea of some sites that that could work potentially. As noted earlier, as a resident, I know how important it is to not only fit within, but to preserve and complement our community. My goal is to not only identify a suitable site, but a sensational site to build a surf park. I want the surf park to become a jewel of the community and our region as a whole for generations to come. So here's a look at some of those parcels in Town Center West. The goal is to be close enough to the existing commercial zone and residential communities while being far enough away to accommodate for noise, lighting, and traffic concerns. Another location that we are really interested in is the EDH 52 area. And you know, just primarily because of it's just it represents the type. It's a good example of the type of land that we would be interested in our community. The close proximity to Highway 50 is attractive to us, both for the traffic and noise concerns that may come up. We also like that the local schools and the residential communities are all within walking distance. Both of these check our community and accessible boxes that we talked about at the beginning. This large parcel also gives our project the opportunity to fill the needs for more mixed use recreation and commercial attractions in the community. Of course, the old executive golf course is another sensational site for a surf park and master planned commercial recreational zone. A little more tricky to maybe get into that one though. But one can dream, right? So we're at the end here, guys. I think just a couple questions. You know, that was kind of a high level overview of what we want to do, you know, and we hope that APAC's inspired by what we want to do, and we hope the community is inspired by it. And we know that it's going to be a tall task, you know, to do something like this, but we understand that early engagement and that open dialogue is what's going to lead us to success. So, you know, I would just love to ask, you know, the panel here, you know, any initial feelings or pulse checks that you might have, whether you like it or don't like it, any red flags or feasibility that you might foresee in the county, any planning or permitting challenges, traffic, noise and lighting, environmental or miscellaneous.
So I had the benefit of speaking with Chris in a Zoom session the other day. And so obviously I got a little bit of insight and I think we discussed a little bit. All the things you identify are things that projects always have concerns with: traffic, noise, lighting, you know, those sort of impacts. I think the other component for you is everybody's going to ask where the water is coming from. And I know you've talked to EID. I wonder if you could talk about your discussion with EID to kind of, before people start asking, where's that water?
Sure. Yeah. No, we had a meeting with EID 2 weeks ago, just a discovery meeting to kind of let them know, you know, what we're intending to do, what we want to do. And the response was great. You know, I can't, you know, put them on the hook too much, but their initial response was very good. And they said they have plenty of water to meet our needs. You know, we do have our exact water needs, but we're probably a little premature to really release those, you know, quite yet, but we did release those to EID, and they ensured us that we've got the water. You know, it may seem like a lot of water when you look at it because it's all being contained there, but it doesn't really go away too much. You know, we have some evaporation and different things where we'll be replenishing the water over the course of the year. But when you really look at the details, it really doesn't use that much water in comparison to other things like golf courses, soccer fields, things of that nature. Some of these projects are doing some really interesting ways to sort of offset their water usage as well. There's one in Yakima, Washington, where I think they partnered with the neighboring farmer to sort of, either grow less during a certain amount of the year or something to sort of work with their water needs. There's another group in the Palm Desert region where they actually worked with the golf course to remove 20 acres of unneeded golf terrain, and they replaced it with drought tolerant, landscaping, and that offset some of their water needs. So there's a lot of ways that we look to offset that and be as thoughtful in that as possible. But the quick answer is that, we've been told preliminarily, at least, that the water needs will be met.
And the reason I asked is because I know we discussed it, and then as soon as I put it on the agenda, people's like, where's this water? We're concerned. So, but the idea is always confident in their water availability.
I mean, even my mother, is very, questions a lot of water with any growth that's happening in our area. She always comes to the water. And, and what I've learned through this is that you have to trust the engineers that are making those decisions, at EID and understand that those checks and balances are there,
Oh, do you have any?
Because of the lateness of the.
Okay, you're gonna control yourself.
I personally think you won't be able to you're going to need a big facility to draw people. And I don't think you could ever get the water necessary to run that kind of a facility. I come from back east where you have theme parks that have surfing, and they require an awful lot of water. They have a lot of liability with people drowning in those kinds of surf environments. Yes, okay. And I am over 75 and I wouldn't be surfing in that. And I'm a swimmer. And I noticed on your map, most of these places are close to the ocean where you can draw water. Okay, from what I saw, most of them in California are close to the ocean where you can draw water. I think a big problem is going to be water, okay? And I don't think you'll ever meet it, despite what EID says. EID is very optimistic in the amount of water that they have. So that would be my comment. That's all I'm going to say tonight, John.
Thank you for that.
Anybody else in the room that would like to provide some feedback? So we have a small audience tonight. So I'll go to our online attendees. Anybody in Zoom land would like to raise their hand and ask a question? And we might have kept people too late. I don't see any hands going up. So in terms of competition, is there anything else on the horizon in the region, or are you out in front?
Well, there are 4 surf parks coming to the Palm Desert area, just the Palm Desert area. There are at least 2 coming to Southern California. In talking with those developers, they consider those markets A markets. Northern California apparently is not an A market to them. I think it is an A market, which is why I'm on this mission. But the short answer is that they will be coming. The Northern California region could probably satisfy 3 surf parks between the Bay Area, San Jose, and the Sacramento Valley, at least 3. There probably will be more than that in 10 to 15 years. These things are not going to go away because the demand is there.
I would build a surf park up in Tahoe where you take the water off the lake.
Yeah, well, you can't just take water from just take water from places. You can't just take water from places, but I like the way you're thinking. Tahoe's an area that's really cool. You can go surfing and snowboarding in the same day, right? But the challenges are, of course, the climate. You don't have the climate that we have down the hill. So from a visitor standpoint, just like in Switzerland, I mean, there was snow on the ground there, and it's economically viable. They are making money. They are selling out in that cold climate, but it's a harder sell, in my opinion, than a warmer climate.
In terms of your attendance, is the capacity of the pool the limiting factor, or is it sort of people are on and off all day while they're there taking breaks? Is it like high intense usage, or is it sort of a day event type of thing?
So the surfing is sold in sessions, hour block sessions.
Gotcha.
So you sign up for your sessions. and you go there. You know, there is a limited number of surf sessions deliverable per day and per hour, and that will range on how big of a pool you make. Each session, you know, will either have say 10 to 20 people in it per side, and then each side can have 2 different sessions of varying ability levels happening at once. So essentially you have 4 different sessions happening at once, but there will always be a limited number of people in the surf lagoon. It's not just you just come and jump in, you know, it's a very controlled environment in that regard.
And you're thinking year round?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah,
Because wetsuits work.
absolutely.
Okay.
At the deepest point, it's about 8 feet.
So it legitimately, it really is in terms of the water supply. It's a big pool.
It's a big tub.
Okay.
Yep. Big tub.
I do see a hand going up, and I gotta check to see who it is. Brooke, go right ahead.
So I showed my son some of the conceptual drawings, and I have a huge endorsement from the younger generation for the project. But that being said, is there any way to tie in a facility like this with maybe some other athletic facilities as well? I love the concept of making Eldorado Hills or Eldorado County more of an athletic destination.
That's a great question, and absolutely. I mean, you know, it really just comes down to the developer and the budget and the vision. You know, my vision is absolutely that. I want a multi-use area that, you know, has multiple sports. So it could basically be surfing. You could have, you know, your jogging and your running. You could have a bike track. You could have, you know, skateboarding. You could have golfing. You could have all kinds of stuff. It really just depends what the area and the community want and the budget allows for, you know. But I also do think that there's an opportunity where you will see schools, you know, start to build these in the next 10 years too. Just like their soccer fields, they're gonna have surf clubs and surf teams, and they're also gonna build a surf facility for their school. So I love the idea of mixed athletic destination, just like you said, and absolutely that's what we envision, is making it a destination on one hand, but also this jewel of the local, you know, community. So it's really serving both needs, and if we do it correctly, we can just make it a beautiful thing, you know.
Are there any leagues or anything yet where like competitors, or it could draw some kind of tours for special events? Like I'm thinking like the extreme sport tours and some of those where you have that kind of in place, where it could also be like a tourist attraction too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I understand the question. Are you asking if there's like a competitive league?
Yeah, or like, you know, could the facility host something like that?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the other, you know, visions or components of the facility would be to have events, and those could be surfing events. They could be, you know, couples date nights. They could be, you know, team building events. They could be corporate events. They could be concerts. They could be art and craft festivals. There's just so many things that can tie into, you know, this synergy of a surf park.
Very cool. Well, I've taken up too much of your time, but thank you so much for the presentation.
I appreciate those
So
questions.
we have
Great.
one more question from Joel. Joel, are you unmuted?
Now I am.
There you go.
I was just wondering, what is your projected admission charge to break even?
Well, it's kind of a weird, I don't know if I understand the question, to break even, but I mean, are you asking what we plan to charge?
Yes.
Okay. Well, the prices that are currently out there range anywhere from $60 to $109, you know, and even upwards of 160. One of the surf parks in Texas, I believe, is about 160 per session. So, you know, we're still working out our pricing model. It's a little too early to really nail that down, but I can tell you that as a resident, as a parent, you know, I want to make it affordable. It's got to be affordable to be, you know, successful. I can tell you that it will be much cheaper than driving to San Francisco to go surfing for the day. it will be cheaper than driving to Southern California to go surfing. So, you know, it's designed to be affordable.
Well,
And
thank
I
you.
want, you know, kids pricing, senior pricing, even locals pricing. You know, there may be an opportunity to have the local community show their residents and get a small discount, you know. So we're very interested in making it affordable for the local community and everyone.
All right, well, it looks like we have no more questions. Chris, thank you for being so patient tonight to sit through the traffic discussion.
Oh, I learned a lot. Thank you.
We do have a couple of quick updates that we're going to share, and so John can go home. I'm going to throw this on the screen real quick. John. So project updates, there's, we have this from the fire department, proposed convenience store, fast food combo, car wash. And it's near the property that Chris was talking about there in Town Center West along Town Center Drive where it hits White Rock Road. So there's no details, there's nothing in track it yet, but the fire department was kind enough to share that with us. And I believe that would probably be an approved use in the Town Center West plan development. Yep. So there's that. The other item, I hope you're ready. Let's see if I can get this to go. Generations at Green Valley. The former Dixon Ranch project that was denied in 2017 had over 400 homes, lots proposed for that. We did talk to them right after their project was denied, and I want to say it was probably the end of 2017 or beginning of 2018. And they do have an application in with the county right now. Their vision at this point is that they realized the major objection besides traffic on Green Valley Road was that the impact they would have on the 5 and 10 acre parcels that are all around it. They're proposing to have a buffer and use their project as a buffer with some 3 and 5 acre various size properties on the outside of their project and have the density on the inside of their project. So that was a concept they talked to us. We have not heard back from them, and I didn't get a message back from them this week. But it is a project at county, 379 single family lots, a lot for a park, a clubhouse, 9 open space lots, 13 landscape lots, and 3 road lots. So the impacts on Green Valley Road were a major concern in the last go around back in 2017. So we have this coming up before us. So it is a project that seeks a general plan amendment, a rezone, and a new tentative map. And this is sort of the project area. It would back up to Highland Hills, Murray Homestead Park, and it's right there off of Green Valley Road. And that's just their large lot phasing plan for when they would start and how they would finance the project. So, and then that's a more detailed look at what they're sort of proposing. These documents are on the APAC website. It's listed underneath projects under review. Hopefully we'll have an opportunity to have Aiden come here and talk about this project. I know that we'll all want to hear about it. So with that, that's another one that we've added to the list of projects we're looking at. Central Eldorado Hills. Commissioner Vegna had mentioned on Monday at the Eldorado Hills Community Council meeting that he envisions the Central Eldorado Hills specific plan would be back at the Planning Commission likely in March or in April. And I believe he was mentioning the end of the month for both of those. I might not be right about that. They have some scheduling challenges there, but that's coming back. We've already provided our findings on that. There may be an opportunity. We have a community member that's been talking to APAC about what he's a lot of experience in the land development business, and he has some ideas and some thoughts. If it's appropriate next month, we might have him share that. The challenge for us is that as volunteers on APAC, we don't endorse or try to stop projects. We just provide our feedback. And what he's talking about, it's a mix. So I don't mind letting the public hear what he has to say because he has worked with us and presented a lot of things that would probably be included in our new findings. But I think it's important for the community to hear it because it's not just a yes or no. It's he has some other thoughts about the project. So it's just an opportunity for us to talk about it. So all these projects likely before us in the year or next. John Resler and I talked about this earlier last week about how members of the public can become voting members of APAC. Well, basically, you work on one of our review subcommittees. One of these projects, you might want to be talking to Chris for a while, and his project comes an official thing, and do some review. And when you work on projects And we'll, none of us are experts. We'll show you what we know. You might have an approach that might be more educated, more informed than we do as volunteers, but we'll help as best we can. And it's just a matter of contributing something. And once you're on a subcommittee, then you'll become a voting member in APAC. I want to remind everybody, you can provide your comments to APAC in advance of our meetings, as long as they're in the Monday before our Wednesday meeting. We did get a few questions in this time, so thank you, community, for that. And with that, our next meeting is March 9th, likely here in this building. If we don't have any projects, and I'm thinking Central might be something we'll be talking about, depending on scheduling, we'll be in person. Okay, Supervisor Hidahl.
So I got a very quick update to Brooke's question about what was going on with the HOA park in Saratoga Estates. I emailed it to you, John.
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
And I tried to send it to Brooke, but it bounced back. So maybe her email has changed. But basically, he's saying there is a public park, which is bigger than the HOA park. The public park, which we're also building this summer with the blessing and approval of the CSD, is located at the corner of Wilson and Saratoga outside the gates. The inside HOA park was originally a detention basin. And since there was no park facility inside the gates, they moved the basin and redesigned the area for the park. He says, of course, all those changes were approved by both the county and the CSD. So he's going to give me some more information, but that's the initial response. He's going to give me kind of a history of how that changed. So he agreed to do that. So
I know the CSD's been talking about it a lot.
yeah, right.
So perhaps we can ask the CSD to provide an update to us if they have the time next month.
My understanding is the HOA park has some amenities the public really loves.
Yes.
You would think the CSD would want to emulate those in the public park that they're building, but I don't know that that's part of the plans. That's something for Brooke and others to comment on.
These things do cost money. So,
They do.
So Brooke, hopefully that's a partial answer for you. And if I'll check with Kevin or Tony at the CSD and see if they would be amenable to providing us some feedback. All right. So with that, thank you everybody for a late night. I apologize for the late hour, for the difficulty with the screen. We are adjourned. Everybody have a good and safe night and look forward to seeing everybody next month.